Oh, relax.
What?
Wow. People wouldn't know.
Okay, no intro today.
Hey, no inside, my bad. It was still said women's, and I forgot to
Oh my goodness.
So no
change.
intro?
It's still good.
No intro.
We're going?
We're live. No, we're
What
on.
the hell?
Right?
People wouldn't know. People wombs matsim. Yeah, yeah. Ititi nakusei.
You learned a lot down there. Okay.
Well, we didn't have an intro, so that's all right, you know. But we had language class this morning. You know, the language department came in, and you know, we're trying to figure out how to incorporate the language into you know our daily conversations. So, you know, that was the hold up this morning, and but yeah, here we are coming live from 1950 South Shepherd. Um, how you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Um, it was cool in the language class. Like I felt comfortable saying the words.
Yeah.
Confident in saying the words. You know. I was kind of writing out the Arapaho words. You know, in a way that like they're the pronunciation
Yeah.
of the words, and when I'm looking at them, I can say them.
Yeah.
But you know, it's gonna take practice to like memorize them
Yeah, to get it going.
and use them. But I think that's cool. Josie's Arapaho, and
Yeah.
I want her to learn, you know, more too.
Definitely.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. But I enjoy any learning opportunity that I
Yeah.
receive. I think like when you are growing up and you don't care much about school, and then like just where I'm at now in life, I can appreciate knowledge.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah, you know, and the way I see it is I've I've been wanting to learn, you know, I know how to do my introduction in Cheyenne, you know, but I wanted to learn Arapaho because, you know, we represent both tribes.
Right.
You know, and like I don't ever want anybody to feel excluded. You know, like say it's somebody Arapaho that wants to get sober. I don't want them to ever feel like, oh well, he's just Cheyenne.
Right.
You know, I think it's important that we learn both, you know, and you know, and just whatever that has to look like. You know, our objective is to connect with people, and I feel like if we learn both, that might give us a leg up on, you know, maybe just overcoming one of those things, you know, because growing up, you know, in CNA country, you know, we always tease, we just tease, you know, like Cheyennes always tease Rappos, Rappos always tease Cheyennes, you know, and you know, I think you know that's you know, not to say I'm gonna ever change any of that, but I think that when it comes to like what we do, we can start thinking about ourselves like as one people. You know, like I like the way that White Bison approaches those types of things. You know, is wherever they're having a talking circle, whatever is, you know, maybe traditional or culturally right for that area. I like, you know, I like to see how other tribes do things.
Yeah.
You know, and so I like the fact that, you know, maybe it would help us connect better with, and I hate to say clients. I don't like to say clients, yeah, because then it sounds like work. You know, I like to think of them maybe as students. You know, like maybe if we, you know, you just got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
You know, so I like the fact that, you know, we have an opportunity to maybe incorporate both languages into what we do.
Right.
You know, I would love to go up to a mic and, you know, just start. I mean, you know, I already know how to introduce myself in Cheyenne, but I would like to do it in Arapaho too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You know,
We
and
learned a lot of those like greetings today, and
yeah,
one of the questions we were asked was how can we incorporate the language into the different things that we do. And so I was thinking first, like the way that we reach people, outreaches, like in person.
Yeah.
But I did my very first outreach last week, and we spoke to so many different tribes, like tribes from all over,
Uh-huh.
you know. So I was like, man, I don't know how that would work, but I know that you got to learn a little at a time. Like,
Yeah. Don't overwhelm yourself.
no, yeah. So, but definitely adding language back in it's very interesting to me.
Definitely. You hear words growing up, but like my grandma was she was from the boarding school era. My grandpa was from the boarding school era, and they didn't even teach their kids. Like, it was my grandpa's first language.
Right.
He didn't even speak the language to his own kids. But when their friends would come over, he would talk Cheyenne to them.
Really?
But he wouldn't talk Cheyenne to his own kids.
Why was
And
that?
I don't know. I think it just has something to do with the boarding school era. Maybe I always think that maybe they think they were protecting them because they probably got beat for speaking their language.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like I think they thought they were protecting them. But who's to say? There's no telling why. You'd probably just have to ask him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think a lot of that happened around. I was very fortunate though. I was exposed to the language. My grandma Nellie. My aunt Lou. My other grandma Nellie. My brother Craig, Tracy, Betty. Kevin Calvin. Like you would hear all of them like. Even if you didn't like know the language, they could say a word or two that made you understand what they were, because you sit around the table with them and they would all be talking Cheyenne.
Wow.
Like, and I would just feel like an outsider. But I mean, at the same time, somebody would explain what the conversation was. And man, my grandma Nellie, Craig's grandma, like man, she loved me. Like she was so good to me. And it's cool because her dad, Harvey Whiteshield, was the first Cheyenne to go to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania and graduated and came home and was a preacher, and he translated the Bible into Cheyenne.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of the hymns that we sing, they're the ones that he translated. And he taught my grandma Nellie how to read and write, but only in Cheyenne. Like
That was a lot of work.
yeah, like you ever seen one Cheyenne word like 20 letters in it,
Yeah.
all the apostrophes and all the proper spelling. But yeah, so it was, I was exposed to it, but then like I moved here to El Reno, and like yeah, like nobody, I don't know, like it just, and so like you don't think about it when you're a kid. You notice the difference, as to how people carry themselves out west and how they carry them here, closer to the city. And I would say, we were more like I was very lucky to be from where I was from. I realize that today, but back in the day, I looked at it as like I was ashamed of it because I was from a little bitty town, and like everybody just thought I was like, I thought everybody was like, I don't know, like street smart over here. But as I got older, street smart, and I took one of my friends out to where I'm from one time, and he was like, like I feel like I'm different. Like everybody knows you, so they know that you're from here. But I feel like I'm different, and they look at me like a city slicker. And I said, you can be as smart as street smart as you want to be over here. I said, but don't be country dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whatever you do, be as street smart as you want, but don't be country dumb. Like you'll get beat up. Yeah.
Just banned from.
Yeah. And he was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. So I mean, I like the fact that we're trying to, we're at least trying. Like James said, my brother James, he said we got to pay that language bill for our kids. Because if we can't put that on them,
Right.
like if not us, then who? So
Start somewhere.
yeah, it's got to start somewhere, and not to say that like it's kind of weird, like when you're trying to learn, and then like your best friends with the fluent speaker, like you don't even want to you don't want to say nothing because then if you I don't know, like I don't know.
Got called out for being like the whitest person there today. He said, I don't know how you got that word, but you did. And I was like, yeah, I did.
But
I don't take it personal at all. It was
Nah.
funny to me. Like it was funny. I felt like I was keeping up. I was
for sure.
All you can do is learn, try.
Because the same way that it was taken from us, like quit talking that language, learn how to read and write. Now we can use those same tools to learn it back.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
for sure.
Like the same way that it was taken from us, we can use those tools to learn it back. So I mean, that's one way to think of it.
Yeah.
Like, and I hear Natalie talk about these things all the time because Natalie's a fluent speaker in her language.
Yeah.
She talks Muskogee.
She blows me away when she's talking on the phone.
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy. I
Yeah.
can remember being like 14, like in my first relationship, and I was more going to dances and going to like different things, and his family, like the elders in his family, could speak fluently, and they would say like a whole long prayer, like we heard today, and just, like how shocking that was, and like how confused, like because it's something I've never heard before, and it was really new. And Josie she can tell you like, oh, they're speaking Cheyenne or Arapaho, so I think that's already like one step ahead, like it's already been brought back into the school starting as early as Head Start, so that's a good thing,
definitely.
So
It's all about exposure.
yeah, she
Exposure.
was singing she was singing a powwow song, or and it's something they would sing around the drum, and I was like, did you make that up? She said, yeah, I'm singing a powwow song.
That's
and
cool.
It was funny because you were telling us the song that women could sing,
And
I was like, oh, maybe she'll grow up and be a singer.
well, I mean, more than likely, like women can sing just about every song.
Yeah.
There's not like a certain song, like they have their part in it. Like there's always a men's part, and then there's a part where the women come in.
Yeah.
And we call it, the backing us up. So
we're just having a whole cultural lesson.
Yeah.
On the live. I'm just learning as I'm
Me too.
in here.
Me too.
So, but yeah, I do have a good friend from high school that goes everywhere, travels all over and sings, and so I think that's really
cool.
Very cool.
Definitely. But yeah, that was the hold up this morning.
Yeah, we were in language class until like 11.
Yeah.
But we would love to bring y'all the morning meditation.
Yes.
So, you ready?
Yes.
Cool. It is May 8th, Thursday. Anyways, with medicine, there's a time and a place for everything. It only comes around once. You have to get it at the right time. Cecilia Mitchell, Mohawk. The old ones say 2 things must be present for a miracle to take place. 1, the right time. 2, the right place. This is why we need to honor our ceremonies. Ceremonies are done in an order. This order is applied to open a door to the right time in the and place of the medicine. This door opens to the spiritual world. The spiritual world is available to us at the right time in the right place. Today, I intend to focus on my Creator. Let me be patient today so the timing is right.
Mm.
Wow. Just that last line is something I have to remind myself of often, because we say that, the Creator's driving this boat that we're in, it's on Creator's timing, but
Yeah.
we still, as human beings, we still want things when we want them.
Mm-hmm.
We still get frustrated when things don't go our way.
Don't come easily.
Yeah, don't come easily. Like when there's hoops to jump through, And so even if you forget, or even if you stray away from God's timing, you can always, pull yourself back to that reminder by grounding. I would say that's one way that I really come back to myself and find acceptance, is by grounding myself. Two things must be present for a miracle to take place: the right time and the right place. Man, what do you have on that?
Well, thank you for reading that, Miss Escott.
Mhm.
What I was thinking about was, the right time. I feel like if anything would have went my way while I was in my addiction, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Like I remember a time in my life where it's like my life was on repeat.
Yeah.
I would go to jail. While I'm in jail, I've been a jailhouse Christian. I've been a jailhouse, all the things. Then I'd be getting ready to get out. And as soon as I got out, every plan that I had went out the door. Because I'd be mad at my kid's mom for what, the things that were happening whenever I was gone.
Yeah.
So that would automatically put me in this mental state where I don't know if I want to be here. I don't want to, I thought about y'all this whole time and nobody cared if I was gone, because, my life was on repeat.
Right.
It was part of what happened. And I remember getting myself out of going to jail all the time. I quit hanging out in them places. I quit going around those people, and then, then life keeps happening, So when I think about the right time, I think about everything, every trial and tribulation that I had to go through, to make up my mind. When was the right time to surrender to my addiction? Because I keep, like I said, if everything's always going right for me in my addiction, then there's no reason to get sober.
Right.
Like life had to come crashing down on me. Life had to kick my ass. It's just it's plain and simple. I'm that hard headed.
Yeah.
So when I finally admitted I need help, and I called Justin Evans, and a 5-minute conversation with him changed my life forever.
Wow.
And I didn't have no idea where I was going, what I was getting into. I just knew that I needed help. So then I think about the place. I had to go all the way to California, Riverside, California, to Pacific, and had a great experience over there. I had a great experience over there. Man, I had, you build up all this positive momentum, and then you go to a program which, shout out to Dream Recovery in Costa Mesa. I had an even better experience there. Found my home group in Fountain Valley, over there with Alonzo, and got introduced to Wellbriety with Bernardo. Um,
That's awesome.
like started working my steps with Sam Anglin, my brother Sam, out there in Michigan. Like I started taking all these positive steps.
Hmm.
And then, I missed my kids, so I came home. And whenever I came home, I realized like what a special place it was for me to start healing and getting my life together in California. That definitely felt like the right place. And what I was able to bring home was my recovery, my sobriety. That was my medicine.
Yeah.
Like that was it. Like I had to recover out loud.
Hmm.
I had to like talk about the experience that I went through. Because everybody knew who I was.
Yeah.
Everybody, around here knew who I was and what I did and how I did it and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But what they never seen was me like take a stance in my life and finally stand for something positive.
Mhm.
And I felt like, and I know now, that yes, I was the problem. I can admit that all the way. In every situation, I look at my part in the way that I did things,
Right.
and I was the problem. But what I found was I'm also the medicine.
Hmm.
Like at some point, whoever was praying for me said the right thing,
Yeah.
and that light, that switch clicked on, and once it did, it was like you see the world in a whole new light.
Hmm.
You understand things in a different, like the world's not against me. Not everybody's trying to kill me. Like I don't have to look over my shoulders no more. I don't have to like sleep with my money in my sock, or you know what I mean.
Under your pillow.
Nah, I will, yeah. Most of the time I'm probably laying on the floor, but I understand, that it was my time.
Mhm.
It took me 41 years. 41 years of pain and heartache to understand that I had to be surrounded by other alcoholics and addicts to understand like it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
I had to be somewhere else where I couldn't just walk away. If I'd have stayed here in Oklahoma
Mhm.
and I got mad, I'd have been like, I'm walking home.
Yeah.
I could have been in the panhandle. And he'd be like, I don't, I'm leaving,
I'm
like
out.
I had to be somewhere where I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But not that I ever thought about it, but I mean, I think mentally it just gave me an answer as to you're going to do this no matter what.
Hmm. I agree. It
So,
helped the process.
yes,
For me
definitely.
too. Because, like, I had Josie, and there were times when I missed her really bad.
Yeah.
And just my mom and like my family, but I could not just get up and walk out. Like I was in New Jersey,
Yeah. Joyzy.
Jersey. Like they were like, y'all, who says y'all? It's probably yous.
Yeah.
Probably yous. But it was funny, like you were talking about how you ended up in California, and like I ended up in New Jersey of all places. And like it's been my dream to go to New York my whole life. So I literally fly into New York airport, and I'm like, whoa, who would have thought I'm
Yeah.
pulling up in New York only to take a short bus ride to Jersey? Because
You had to ride a bus from there?
I mean, not a bus, a van.
Uber? Oh,
Because I am like going to rehab.
yeah.
So it's crazy how everything worked out.
Works
But,
out, yeah.
I mean, I definitely was in the right place at the right time, and
Mhm.
like it took me a week to get there. You know what I mean? But after I got sober, I got this 222 on my neck, and like I don't know, I love it personally. Now that I'm working, like I was self-employed. Now that I work for someone else, which tattoos and recovery are never like really an issue.
Yeah, like
We all have some tattoos. But anyways, the 222 is my angel numbers, which are numbers that come from a higher source, a higher, frequency, power, whatever you want to call it, the universe. And it means alignment, like I'm in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
That's literally the
significance of that.
And so my mom was just like, yeah, I'm going to get a tattoo. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to get one because I shouldn't right now. Like, I don't have the extra money for one.
Mm-hmm.
And we get there. She's just like, oh, yeah, okay. So we get there. And then she's like, you're getting a tattoo and I'm paying for it. And I was like, I don't even have anything planned. Like, I don't know what to get. I don't want to get something random. And then I got this 222 on my neck. And like, it goes with my tattoo over here. Like, I have memento mori, which means where like death is inevitable. So you can.
Yeah.
And then like my self-love over here, and like all of these just tie into my life and like the different chapters of my life and where I've been, I got Josie's name right here. Like that was a whole, the beginning of her life was a whole chapter.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like my tattoos are a reminder. I can look at in the mirror and remember that everything happened as it was supposed to,
Mm-hmm.
as it should,
Yeah. God's time.
Right place, right time. But man, all those times in addiction where I didn't I wasn't hearing, I wasn't ready. Like I knew it at the back of my mind. You know what I mean? You had those moments, like small, like
yes.
they were
A lot of them.
Flash of light of like, oh dang, maybe I should like try something else. Maybe I should do something different. But when it's like all
Mm-hmm.
like no one talked about recovery in my family. No one talked about sobriety or even let alone rehab. Like if you went to rehab,
yeah,
something was really
loser.
Yeah. Like almost like I ended the party by going to rehab, But I'm so grateful. Like doing that was the best thing I could have ever done for my life. And I'm so glad, like I know my family questioned it at first. Like, what is she doing? Is she really going to treatment or is she just want to
Yeah.
My grandma had to call the treatment center and talk to the front desk people to believe me. And but I know that once they trusted and believed, they knew like it was something I had to do.
The change.
Yeah.
They seen the change.
And it was life or death,
Yeah, like the way I was thinking about it was, the power of the creator, Mahio, is I thought it was the worst thing to ever happen to me in my life. Like to my pride and ego.
Right.
That's where like it really hit me hard. But then it went from being the worst thing in my life to being the best thing to ever happen to me in my life.
Yeah.
Like I said, once that switch was flipped, it went from like the most shameful thing that I ever had to do into the most beautiful thing that I ended up doing. And without even changing the situation. Just one day I was shamed out about it. Then the next I was like, man, this is like the best feeling ever. Like I can't believe I've been missing out on this.
When did that happen for you? Like the shame fell off and then you knew you were able to like talk about your recovery?
Once we started doing more groups and understanding, like I'm understanding what they're saying. Because I guess you can say I was listening with my heart at that point.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, of course, I'm hearing it through my ears, but I'm filtering it through my heart. Like I'm listening with my heart. Everybody that came in there to speak to us, everybody that had anything to do with, us students, it was like it happened real quick, like I remember the first day that I woke up and I just felt relieved that I was laying in a bed. I just felt relieved that, I kind of knew where I was at, like, but I remember getting there.
Uh-huh.
And, I want to say it was like the third or fourth day. Like, I woke up like at the crack of dawn, like, wow, like, I can't believe I've been running from this, like, just, I think once I learned to like trust the process.
Mhm.
Once like I seen the people that I was surrounded by, once I seen like that nobody was judging me, the whole staff, they're all in recovery,
Yeah.
so they know exactly how I feel. They understand what I'm trying to, like, when I'm saying stuff, when I'm trying to express my feelings and stuff, they know exactly what I mean.
Mhm.
And once I understood, like, I was in a safe place, I would have to say that's when I realized, like, okay, like something, like, I'm waiting on something to go wrong.
Mhm.
Look, because that's what always happened. Like, it felt so good, and I'm just waiting on, like, where's the bad luck? Where is something bad gonna happen?
Yeah.
And maybe after about a week, I realized, like, but yeah, I would say, maybe third or fourth day, like, just woke up one morning and, all of that was gone.
Mhm.
I woke up to pray.
Wow.
Woke up to pray and just ask that I stay. Like, you hear little things to practice.
Mhm.
Say your prayers before you go to sleep. Say your prayers when you wake up. Ask God to keep you sober just for the day.
Yes.
And that's how, and I still do that. What the good habits that I built, healthy habits that I started it back then, I still do them today, because it was this understanding that I have a second chance.
Yeah.
And I always, what helped me stay sober in the beginning, I knew would help me stay sober today.
Mhm.
So it was, once you build these healthy habits, like you learn how to, your trust starts growing,
Yeah.
and
You feel like a little more okay with yourself each
for
day
sure,
because you're living with a little bit of like structure or like
yeah,
routine in your
learning
life.
how to do the right thing when nobody's looking.
Yes, absolutely. They used to tell us, when you wake up, make your bed, because if you can accomplish one thing, you
Yeah.
can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I'll still hear myself, like if I'm having a rough morning or if I'm running late or things just aren't going in a positive direction that morning.
Yeah.
That's for a reason, for one. Maybe if things are spilling and I'm getting caught on this doorknob and everything, God might be telling me to slow down.
Slow down.
Slow
Yeah.
down, take a breath. Let's, regroup and restart. Maybe I didn't wake up and say my prayers, and that's why I'm a little,
Yeah.
you know.
Little off today.
But I would say, like, talking about, that question that I asked you, I was still unsure if I was going to come back and tell people what I had went through. You know what I mean? But now, where I'm at today looking back, I can't imagine if I would have just got sober, came back
And stayed quiet.
and stayed quiet and lived in my own little bubble and almost like, because I had this whole plan inside of like, oh, no one's gonna know I went to
Yeah.
treatment. I'm gonna come back, but all I'm gonna do is go to work and go home. And I'm gonna, no one's gonna basically know that I exist anymore.
Yeah.
But like, can you imagine what I would have missed out on? Like the friendships that,
The connections.
yeah, the connections. And then like, I take my daughter out to do fun things all the time. And that's one of the blessings of sobriety is not being hungover or not like being like coming down.
Yeah.
So you're so anxious
Being present.
when you're out in public. Yes, being present, like, and 100% myself. Like anything we have to do on a Saturday, I get to wake up and feel good about it and
Yeah.
remember. And in this small community, there's just no way I could have came back and just like made myself
Disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's good to look back on those things and kind of remember, because the guilt and shame was still so heavy at first that, yeah, I didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
And now it feels good to know I'm open, and hopefully it allows other people
That's our medicine.
the courage to be open.
You know, like there's something that I heard Shane say the other night. You know, if you're still unsure, if you're not quite sure that this is what you want, go out and drink some more.
Mm,
You know, like go see if you're done.
yeah.
Like, you know, like if you're unsure about what direction you're struggling with, which way to uh go use again. You know, go see, you know, like go refund all your misery. You know, go get it all, but go get all your misery back and tell me if you're done. You know, like I look at my life then and I think about, you know, my life today. And, you know, my granddaughter, she wanted me to pick her up last night. And, you know, I baby the hell out of her. You know, I really do. You know, I pick her up and I always, you know, we just have our moment. You know, when I get home from work or if I've been gone and I come home, uh, you know, I picked her up and I held her. And, you know, I always just kind of, you know, swing her a little and, you know, pat her back. And I was like, you know, let's go watch TV. And she fell asleep in my arms.
Aw.
You know, and it was like nothing else compares to that.
Yep.
You know, like I don't care how good of a, and man, I had a million good times whenever I was drinking. You know, like I had fun for so long. That's why I did it for so long. Man, I had a blast. I'm not gonna lie. Like I thought I was really happy.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a clown, man. I'm a clown. I'm a walking comedy show. You know, so like I always had like a good time, or else I wouldn't have done it that long.
Right.
You know, but just sitting there last night thinking like there's nothing else that compares to being this little girl's papa. You know, nothing else compares to that. You know, like it says, you know, God was right on time.
Yeah.
God was right on time whenever you know, this little girl came into my life. You know, so whenever I think about, you know, yeah, I miss my friends. Yes, I definitely miss my family. But I can't imagine missing out on one thing with this little girl.
Yeah.
You know, like it all makes sense to me. You know, when they say God's time and you know, he's going to choose the place. And you know, when you know, like when I get home from work today, you know, well, I think she's going to be at her grandma's, but you know, whenever I get home from work, I'm already looking for her. You know, like I'm half blind, so but she doesn't know that. You know, like it's funny because I'll be doing something, and she'll come in there and she'll be like, "Papa, what are you doing?" You know, and then she'll turn to Natalie, "Boji, what are you doing?" You know, like she like really wants to know. You know, we always answer her. You know, and she goes, "Oh," you know, like. But you know, it's the cutest thing, and I definitely feel like you know, if it wasn't to be, if it wasn't meant to be, you know, then I can't imagine. You know, I pray every day that God allows me to stay sober and stay present. You know, and to be that papa that I never had. You know, because I didn't have a lot of grandpas. You know, I had two grandpas, David Hamilton, and you know, married to my grandma Nellie, and then my grandpa Herman Youngbear. You know, they were the two old men around town. Yeah. I wasn't blood related to them, but you know, they're in the community. They're the grandpas. You know. Oh, and I used to call this other old man. He's a Northern Cheyenne guy. His name was Frank Littlehead. He used to come around a lot, and he was one of my good friends. PR was his grandpa, so of course I called him grandpa.
Yeah.
But those were like really the only, and they were old men, like pretty old guys,
Mhm.
And would you become a grandpa today when you're 40?
I know. I know. Like, I already made my mom a grandma. Like, and she told me when I was pregnant at 19, she was like, I'm too young to be a grandma. Like, your kid will not call me grandma. And now she's Grana today, which is like a cool grandma
Yeah.
name. And I don't know. Yeah, it's so different because our grandparents were just older,
Yeah,
I feel blessed that my daughter still gets time with my grandparents that
that's
I
awesome.
didn't get because, like, my grandpa, he was away working just always. And so that left a lot of time for me to spend with my grandma because she didn't have to be alone.
Yeah.
She would take me anytime. But Josie told me because we're going to training next week. She said Poppy's gonna cook me spaghetti and fried potatoes. He literally had a menu planned out for this girl,
Hell yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's spoiled, but she gets the blessing of being around them.
Mm-hmm.
She said I'm gonna go fishing, and yeah, so they got it all planned out. But Natalie said, remember the other day she got your magnifying glass and looked at your phone.
She did. She got my magnifying glass and looked at my phone because that's what I'm always doing.
That's how she sees it.
Yeah.
That's
So that was funny. She grabbed my little magnifying glass and was looking at her orange last night.
that is so cute.
Did we?
We gotta go through the comments.
Yeah.
But whenever Josie does something like that, or like last night, she said, "Mom, I'm not trying to judge someone, but and like brought up their skin." And I said, "No, that's a good observation that you made. Like that was an observation
Yeah.
that your granddaughter made of you,
Yeah.
Just interesting. Kids are just curious, and I feel like we shut them down because we're like, "Don't, that's inappropriate. Or it's gonna hurt someone's feelings,"
Yeah.
No.
You want to start from the top?
Yeah.
Mingo up, Mingo. Yeah, get your life together, Mingo. We got a show going on.
Get your mouse
Yeah,
off
yeah,
the
I do.
screen. Okay, Shanna Beaver says, "Good afternoon. I'll see y'all this evening."
All right. Can't wait to see you, sis.
In Latin, okay.
All right.
David Deer, good afternoon.
Stongo, David. Stongo.
Kimberly says,
Kimberly. Sio.
David Deer says, good
Stongo.
afternoon again.
Stongo.
We got two. Jen Miller says, good afternoon.
Good morning up there in Billings.
Missed y'all yesterday.
I know, right? No, it was you.
Oh, we were on. Yeah.
Yeah, Women's Wednesday.
Yes. Good. So, good afternoon, peeps, from Janice Logan.
Oh, thanks for tuning in, Janice.
Joshua Pickett says, what is that word?
Stongo.
Brothers and sisters, grateful for another day, tuning in from work in Yukon.
Mado.
Janice says, I'm so grateful for my past because if it wasn't for my past, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
I know, right?
That part.
Yeah.
Janice says, South Coast
behavior. I gotta be, that's a great point. If it wasn't for my past, I don't think I would have a future.
That's true.
I mean, there's so many ways you could think of that, but to me, that makes perfect sense because, I wasn't really going anywhere in my life for 41 years till I got sober. Now, like anything's possible because once you were able to overcome your addiction, it seems like all the doors open.
Yeah. So with no past, with no hard past, there would be no future.
Yes, for sure.
Nat said, oh wait, Kimberly said, I've realized that my best thinking gets me in an orange jumpsuit. I'm done.
yeah, for sure. Orange frog.
Nat says, my daughter asked me before she had my granddaughter what I wanted to be called. I told her grandma. She said, you don't want to pick a fancy cute name? I said, no. I loved calling my grandma grandma, and I would be honored to carry that name entirely.
Definitely.
That is so true. Yes. Grandma is a very, very special title.
Yep.
Takes a special person.
Nishki.
All right. Well, thank you all for
Yes,
tuning
thank
in.
you
You
for
got anything
tuning
else?
in. No, we do have a talking circle tonight here at 1950 South Shepherd. We're gonna have some new people come in tonight, so we'd appreciate, if you could come out here at 1950 South Shepherd, park in the back, come through the back door. But we should have a full house tonight. Which will be good. We got some, George Hawkins comes in. So they just had their new clients come in. So, it'll be a great opportunity. If you're new to Wellbriety, come sit in with them, and I guarantee you'll feeling a lot better, about getting into Wellbriety. And the whole public is welcome. It's not just a native thing, on our medicine wheel, there's black, red, yellow, and white, that's represented. And we like to see all colors represented at our meetings. So all non-natives, are definitely invited.
It's a good circle.
Oh yeah, it's a good circle.
Share your sobriety and
You
your good
experience strength and
words
hope.
with
Yes.
us.
But you got anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, like, share, follow, tell your mammy about us, and if anything, we will see you tomorrow. Stasi Boom.